This lesson is all about the standard strumming pattern on the guitar. I call this one the standard strumming pattern because in my experience, this is the strumming pattern that you will use the most frequently in your guitar playing journey. Some people might call it by a different name, they might have a different name for this pattern, but for me it's the standard strumming pattern. It's the one that crops up the most and it's the one that fits over quite a lot of songs and material that you will learn and that you will even come up with as you get better on guitar. This lesson is going to follow on from my previous video, the all downstroke strumming pattern. If you haven't already checked out that lesson, it is listed and linked in the video description below. So before we continue, let's take a listen to what this strumming pattern is going to sound like once you have mastered it and once you've reached the end of this video. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this lesson is ideal for beginners or for anyone who has attempted this strumming pattern before and either not gotten very far, or if you would like some tips on how to make it sound more professional and how to improve your overall feel and timing. So in this lesson, I'm going to give you tips on how to perform this strumming pattern. We're going to break it down step by step. We're going to start with some simple downstrokes. We're then going to learn how to count the rhythm. I'm going to give you tips to improve your timing and your feel, especially with those more complicated upstrokes, before we finally progress onto incorporating this rhythm into a 2-chord strumming pattern. So for the purposes of this video, like in my previous strumming pattern video for beginners, I'm going to be demonstrating this mainly using 1 chord. You can actually just perform these rhythms with open strings if you haven't got round to learning any chords just yet. But I find actually playing a chord to be more inspiring. So we're going to start with just 1 chord because that means you're going to be able to focus on your strumming hand and your rhythm rather than having to think too much about changing chords and changing your fingers around. That chord today is going to be a G chord. If you haven't already learnt that, I'm going to put a diagram up in the corner. It looks like this. It sounds like that. I've got my 2nd finger on fret 3 of the low E string. My index finger is on the 2nd fret of the A string, ring finger is on fret 3 of the B string, and pinky finger is on fret 3 of the high E string. Now that we've got that G chord under the fingers, let's have a look at some basic rhythm on the guitar first. I did this in my previous video on strumming, so my all downstroke strumming pattern video. To begin with, you want to make sure that you can perform a simple downstroke rhythm to a metronome or a drum beat. Today I'm going to use a metronome and I'm going to set it to 80 beats per minute. We're going to start with just all downstrokes before we start incorporating upstrokes, since this pattern will be built around a strong downstroke rhythm. So again, fret that G major chord with me. I'm going to start my metronome. And all we're going to do to begin with is just make sure that we can play downstrokes with that beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4 in time with that metronome. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So a couple of pro tips for this one. Even if you're a beginner, make sure that you're strumming from the wrist like this. So you can see there that most of my movement, most of my strumming is coming from my wrist. I kind of flick it down like that, and I'm almost going in a kind of a curve across the strings like this rather than a straight line. I'm not strumming from the elbow. This is one of the mistakes I pointed out in my previous strumming lesson. I'm not rigid and doing this like that, so it doesn't sound as nice as if I can do a smooth flick like this. Another tip that I found really useful is even when you are just strumming simple downstrokes like that, tap your foot in time with the metronome. So 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. My foot is tapping in time with the beat, and I'm going to synchronize that with what my right hand's doing. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm keeping that foot tapping as I perform that rhythm. Alright, so now let's move on to how to count this rhythm. Again, the pattern is going to sound like this. that would be 1 bar. To count it, I'm going to count 1, 2, and 4, and. So 2 bars would be 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and. Let me just demonstrate that close up. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and 1, 2, and 4, and. Once you've got used to vocalizing those beats and that rhythm with the metronome, then it's time to start looking at the directions that you're going to perform this rhythm with. Now, it is possible to perform this rhythm with all downstrokes, like this. And it sounds okay, but it doesn't sound as smooth and as laid back as if you can get those upstrokes in there as well. So once you can count that rhythm, 1, 2, and 4, and, we're going to vocalize the directions that we're going to use instead of counting the rhythm. And I promise that will make more sense once I demonstrate that close up. Now, the directions that we're going to use will be in this order. So down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. I'm now going to demonstrate that in the strumming pattern, and I'm going to do it close up. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. Now let's talk about some of the areas where beginners and guitar players in general tend to struggle with this strumming pattern. Now, some people can just get this straight off, but those people are quite rare. Most people have to practice this and have to focus in on these tips before they can truly master this pattern. The first area where people can tend to struggle with this rhythm is with the counting and with synchronizing the directions in the right order. And it tends to go wrong halfway through the bar when you get those 2 upstrokes in a row. So when we get to here, down, down, up, I see a lot of people really struggle to do those 2 upstrokes in a row. It is not very natural to begin with. The reason for that is, and that you may have picked up on this when I was originally demonstrating the rhythm and demonstrating the counting, is that we have to miss out beat 3. Because we're missing out a strong beat, our body tends to react badly against it, and you want to put a downstroke in where you really want to be putting an upstroke, which would be off the beat, which would match what your body wants to naturally do. So your body really wants to feel that beat 3. The problem is, I think a lot of people don't feel that beat 3 when they have to leave it out, and that can lead to awkwardness in their strumming. So to counteract that, my top tip is to use a kind of a fake downstroke in time with beat 3 and then come immediately back up for the and. I'm going to demonstrate that now, but I'm going to do it without the metronome. So you want to go as if you're going to perform that downstroke on that beat 3, but you want to miss the strings and then come back up. So at least your body can feel that beat 3 and feel that rhythm. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So down, down, up. There's my fake. Up, down, 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 up, down, up. So down, down, up, miss, up, down, down, up, down, up. I'm constantly keeping my hand moving in that alternating down, up rhythm, and I must feel that beat 3 in order to keep myself in time. Another area where people tend to struggle with this rhythm is with the upstrokes. A lot of people, when they first start performing upstrokes, will tend to go all the way through the strings like this. So if I do that same pattern and I go to my first upstroke, now you might be thinking, well, what was wrong with that? The problem is that I went all the way through the strings and I'm actually creating more work for myself, and it doesn't sound as good as if I don't go all the way through the strings. I'm going to do that again. I'm now going to perform the whole strumming pattern and I'm going to go all the way through the strings on those upstrokes. 3, 4. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but you can see that my hand and my arm looked a little bit awkward. They had to work a lot harder, and it didn't sound as good as when I first performed the rhythm. Now that's because when I do those upstrokes, I don't go all the way through all 6 strings. I mainly just catch the high 2 or 3 strings, or sometimes even 4 strings as I'm going back up. But I definitely don't go all the way through in that motion. Another tip with the upstrokes is that I tend to flick it back like this in kind of a reverse motion to what my hand did or my wrist did when I come down for the full downstroke. So I'm going to perform that little flick of an upstroke now in with this strumming pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So down, down, up, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. If you can reduce the amount of volume that your upstrokes have in that manner, so by not going all the way through the strings and maybe just catching the high 2 or 3 strings, then you actually create a separation in your rhythm. So your downstrokes will be louder than your upstrokes, and that's exactly what you want. It sounds much more controlled, and it sounds much more professional, and it sounds much more rhythmic, and that's exactly what we want as guitar players. All right, so once you've mastered 1 chord with this strumming pattern, let's move on to 2 chords. I'm going to do a 4-bar strumming pattern with 2 chords. So we're going to do 2 bars on each chord. I'm still going to start with that G chord before I change to a C add 9 chord. Now C add 9 is very similar to G. To perform it, all we're going to do is lift our first and second fingers. We're going to leave the ring finger and the pinky finger on fret 3 of the B string and the high E string respectively. We're going to place the index finger on fret 2 of the D string, and we're going to place the middle finger on fret 3 of the A string. We're going to strum that chord from the A string, so try not to get the low E string in there. It's going to sound like that. As a basic demonstration of this strumming pattern, it's going to sound like this. 2, 3, 4. So, and then we're going to change to C add 9. Let's now do the same thing. I'm going to show it to you close up, and I'm going to put the metronome on at 80 beats per minute. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So G, up, up, down, up, down, down, up, C add 9. Up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, G, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, C add 9. The counting now. 1, 2, and 4, and 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 1, 2, and 4, and. Another thing that you might have noticed that I was doing there is that on the last upstroke before I'm about to change chord, so that would be in the 2nd and the 4th bar respectively, I start to lift my fingers, but I still perform the upstroke in the chord. I would encourage you to keep doing that and to keep that strumming pattern going no matter what your left hand fingers are doing. So even if these are lifting off the guitar to change chord, don't stop that rhythm. It's going to sound really good, it's going to sound really smooth, and it's going to sound a lot more professional if you can do that. Another tip is to keep your strumming light, so light and loose like I was there, and eventually what you want to be able to do is tap your foot in the solid 4 rhythm while being able to perform the downs and the upstrokes at the same time. Don't worry if you can't do that at first. At first your foot will probably want to do what your strumming hand is doing. You'll probably want to follow that. But eventually you want to progress so you can develop the independence that you can tap your foot in time and that you can do a different rhythm with your strumming hand. A bit like trying to rub your head and pat your tummy at the same time, or vice versa. Make sure you always practice to a metronome, or even better, a drum beat. Try not to practice too much freestyle in your own time. You definitely want to have some kind of strict, rigid tempo in order to improve. I don't think you'll see much progress if you don't practice in time. Start between 70 and 80 beats per minute and slowly increase that tempo as you get more comfortable. Experiment with more chords, so however many chords you know, try and put them into a chord progression, and experiment with different tempos. So maybe one day you pick 80 beats per minute, maybe one day you pick 130. Or you can work your way through the tempos in order. So 80, then add 10 BPM, to 90, then 100, 110, 120, etc. So that just about wraps it up for the standard strumming pattern lesson. I hope you found this lesson useful. If you did, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell to get notified of all my guitar lessons and backing tracks whenever I post them up in the future. Also visit my website colchesterguitarteacher.com for more tips on strumming, rhythm and guitar playing in general. Thanks very much, take care, enjoy guitar playing. I'm Paul Burke, I will see you in the next video. Thank you.